Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Professor Anime, and welcome back to yet again another review for the fall 2017 season of anime. Today we are going to be talking about one of the shows that I was really anticipated for this coming season, and that is the Ancient Magus Bride. So without further ado, let's give my first impressions and overall review of what I thought of the first episode to this series. So what exactly is the Ancient Magus Bride about? So the Ancient Magus Bride is kind of like a slice of life fantasy series, and there's a hint of romance in it. However, it's not the main focus of this show, and I'll explain more about that as we go on throughout this review as to why I think that really the romance isn't the biggest factor of this show. But first, let's talk about the story. So the story of the Ancient Magus Bride is about a girl who is about 15 or 16 years old named Hitori Chise. And she is basically auctioned off as a slave, and amongst a whole crowd of people. And then one day, apparently someone buys her for 5 million yen, or whatever the currency is in this series. And with this fateful encounter of the meeting between the person who bought Hitori Chise, known as Elias Ainsworth, who is a very notorious mage, this is where Hitori Chise's life, and hopefully we will get to see Hitori Chise's life actually change for the better, because when it comes down to everything that has come up to this point, it has been pretty much everything devoid of human love for Hitori Chise. She doesn't know what family is like, she doesn't know what love feels like, you know, she's just kind of been, you know, in a very bad state throughout her entire life. And many of you are probably curious as to figure out more about Hitori Chise's past and just the life that she lived before, why exactly she can see the things that she sees as they were talked about in this episode. You probably have a lot of questions when it comes down to that. Well, to actually clarify for those of you who don't know, this series is actually a sequel to the OVA series that came out for the Ancient Magus Bride. There are 3 OVAs over on Crunchyroll for the Ancient Magus Bride that act as a prequel of Hitori Chise's life before it got to this point. So if you want to go ahead and learn more about Hitori Chise's life beforehand, I mean, I highly recommend you go watch that out. You don't really have to when it comes to getting invested within this series, but if you want to learn more about the world and Hitori Chise herself, as well as her past, then I highly suggest you go watch the OVA series for that, because the OVA series is amazing, and it's only 3 episodes. Now, when it comes down to Elias Ainsworth, the individual who bought Hitori Chise, we really do not know much about his character as of right now and his overall backstory. For all we know, I mean, maybe at one given point in time he could have been a human, but now he looks the way he does. But again, I have no idea, because his backstory is shrouded in mystery. We don't know much about him other than the fact that he is a very kind individual, as well as a very famous individual when it comes to other magi out there and just the outside world as well. It seems like a lot of people know him. And also, while he did buy off Hitori Chise and kind of calls her a puppy or a toy in some sense, while he did buy her off, he also gave her a home to come to and a family to come to. And he basically stated to Hitori Chise that while you are under my rule and while you live in my home, you are considered family. I could throw you out at any given moment in time, but as long as you're here, you are considered family. But it seems as though he has long-term goals with her as well, because not only did he want to buy her off to become his apprentice, but he also wanted to buy her off because of the fact that he also wants to make Hitori Chise his bride. So when it comes down to the dynamic between these two characters, I find them very entertaining and very likable characters already from the get-go, especially when it comes down to Elias Ainsworth, who, you know, doesn't really seem to treat Hitori Chise as a toy like a slave owner will. If anything, he is giving her a home, a bed, you know, food to eat, you know, just treating her like family, and even, you know, brings off the shackles that bind her. You know, I really like the dynamic between the two of them. When it comes to Hitori Chise, she doesn't really know how to react to these sort of situations because she's never had, you know, family or has felt love in this sense before. Now, as I said about when it comes down to the romance factor between the two of them, I don't really think it's going to focus too much on the romance. There will probably be a little bit here and there, but I think it's more about the presentation of the world and the relationship between the two of these characters living within that world, but less so the romance. And I'm talking about more about the relationship between the two of them when it comes down to the overall, you know, how they develop as characters, the trust between them, and just learning certain things about each other. So I don't know if when it comes down to this series you can really expect a whole lot of romance if you're into that, but I still think there is something here for everyone. If I were to classify this series and compare it to something, I would probably say that this is literally Beauty and the Beast, the anime. Now when it comes down to the animation of this series, the animation is done beautifully. The animation is done by Studio Wit Studio, who has worked on Attack on Titan, Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress, and other anime as well. So when it comes down to the overall presentation of this series, it does not disappoint whatsoever. And you also have Production IG working as a producer on the project as well. So you still have like the, you know, really flashy and pretty animation like elements within the art style as well. And in my personal opinion, this is definitely one of the most beautiful animation that I have seen in an anime in quite some time. In terms of animation, this will probably be the best that we have seen of this season so far. In terms of an anime contender for the season, I can definitely see the Ancient Magus Bride as a top contender for this series as well. And to be honest with you, the most fun I've had of this season so far with anime is the Ancient Magus Bride and Kino's Journey. Oh, and also regarding the music is also very, very well done in this series as well. I give props to the creators of, you know, the sound design and the music when it comes down to the series, because it is really beautiful. And even the opening is probably the most fire that I have heard from this season so far. Like, I love that opening. And the ED isn't even that half bad too, but that opening, man, that opening. So yeah, with that said, I really hope you guys enjoyed my first impression / review of the very first episode of the Ancient Magus Bride. You guys know how I usually go about my first impression videos. I just basically talk about the story synopsis, characters, animation, and music, and just overall thoughts of the presentation of the very first episode, rather than a detailed analysis of what happened in the episode. And that is to basically just get you guys interested to checking out this series, or at least consider it. So hope you guys enjoyed it. So again, I will state that if you want to learn more about Hitori Chise's life, I highly recommend you check out the 3-part OVA series over on Crunchyroll. It is essentially a prequel to Hitori Chise's origins and why she can see the things the way she sees, and it will explain a lot more stuff that you had questions for when it comes down to this first episode of the series. So with that said, everyone, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, what you guys thought about this first episode. Do you think this is a possible anime of the season contender? What did you think about it? And just, yeah, what do you think about the dynamic between Elias and Hitori Chise? I'm very curious. Let me know your overall thoughts in the comments down below. Be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing if you want to see more. With that said, I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.